Welcome back to Partnerships Unraveled, the podcast where we discuss everything related to partnerships and channel on a weekly basis. My name is Rick van der Bos. I'm CEO and founder at Channext and co-host of the Partnerships Unraveled podcast, and I'm here together with my co-host Alex Whitford, VP Partners and a co-host of this podcast.
Hi, channel team. How are we doing?
Hi Alex, how are you doing today?
Yeah, really good. Excited to be doing this again.
Fully agree. And do you already know what topic we're going to discuss?
Yeah, I think we've got a good idea of discussing channel and tech partnerships coming together. So yeah, I'm excited to get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've been talking about it a lot recently, where indeed channel and tech partnerships are getting closer together more and more lately. And that's why we thought it would be interesting to dive deeper into that topic. And more specifically today, have a look at what was the origin of channel and tech partnerships, so we can get a good view of where both came from, and then dive a little bit deeper in what the differences are, both in approach as a company, as in the type of partnerships itself. And then I think most importantly, how can you combine them in the best way together, and what opportunities are there so we can actually get the most out of channel partnerships and tech partnerships when we combine the two of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the interesting thing, right? Is understanding where they've come from, why they were valuable, and are those use cases still important today? And well, the answer is yes, but we'll come to exactly why. And then how you fuse those together for the optimum sort of channel and tech partnership strategy going forward. But yes, where the channel has come from, it was sort of born out of, in the sort of late 60s, 70s, technology starting to really drive the world economy. And how do you, create a good product and really take that to market effectively? That is more easily done in the US, but where the channel really is born out of is the complexity of Europe, of APAC, of LATAM, where there's different currencies, different languages, different tax rules. You've got to ship everything. So it's very much a hardware perspective. So distribution is born out of that. And then distribution is the first step, and then recruiting partners who then recruit end users, and you've got this sort of two-way flow of technology and communication. But the most important thing, and the reason, in my mind, channel, no matter how good we get from an automation and an AI perspective, the reason channel is so useful is because people buy from people, right? So having a cascaded group of people who know their market, who know their technology, and know the relationships, the language, the law, that's super important to cascading a technology very, very effectively and very quickly. And the lever and the benefit is extreme, right? Because I can create the world's best product, but if I don't have the way to distribute it effectively, if I don't have the way to introduce it into budget holders, into the people who are going to be evangelists, it's just super difficult to make that work. Whereas the channel is the shortcut to that, because you can go and find people who are selling competitive technology or alliance technology and really drive that through your distributors, through your partners, into the right end users.
So it's all about scaling the sales efforts as well with the channel.
Yeah, exactly. Like channel, if you look at businesses, channel is the biggest cost center initially, and then it becomes the most profitable cost center, because the scaling vector of having one partner manager who is responsible for 10 partners who each have 100 salespeople. Suddenly you've got one partner manager who has effectively 1,000 salespeople dotted lined into them. That's an incredibly important thing to understand when you're building a global strategy. Yes, it's expensive to begin with because you're not directly in control of the end user, right? If you want to go fast, hire an end user team, go and grab end users, that's great. But if you want to go far, hire a channel team, take the product to market, build the complexity through minimizing friction, building a sales, marketing, technical and operational strategy. But then the lever is so effective because suddenly you've got an engaged community really evangelizing your product, taking your strategy to market. And when well executed, it's an example we've used on this podcast many times, but a company like Microsoft, when well executed, I mean, it's the best channel marketing proposition there is.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right there. And I think what's also true indeed, because it's of course really origin from a hardware perspective, like in terms of how do you get the products from A to B. That's why channel is also so important, because it's super expensive to keep all your stock locally, to have everything in the local languages, etc. What do you see there for the role of channel?
Yeah, exactly. So my background's in distribution, right? So I've always got a soft spot for distribution, but that's exactly what it's there for, right? People, when they decide to buy a piece of technology, right? There's a reason Amazon's so popular today. Next day delivery, awesome, right? Now that's a B2B feature before it was a B2C feature, right? Businesses have been expecting next day delivery for a long time. Now, if you're a global manufacturer, how do you organize that? Operationally, that's a nightmare. So having distributors who hold stock and sometimes even partners who hold stock, that allows that facilitation and sort of organization and product delivery and project management at a far more granular level. It's not just a sales scalability, it's sales, marketing, technical, and operational. And so we've discussed many times, if you're going to build a channel strategy, you've got to hit those 4 pillars, but the channel has an effective scaling mechanism for each one of them.
Yeah, you're right about it. And I think, but then there came software. So all the time it was fully hardware focused a lot, and that's indeed why you saw like the classical channel structure there as well. But what we've seen recently is tech partnerships rising to the top more and more, and like I see it everywhere. It's in all the podcasts. It's on LinkedIn, and I think it's particularly interesting to also look at like where does that the tech partnerships origin from, and I think if you look at that from a software perspective, what we've seen before, we were of course completely relying on local partners indeed to get the product from A to B, but now with software it's so easy to like to do the procurement and to have it actually to get it to the customer. And more specifically with the tech partnerships, what I see is that the big shift is that it went to a subscription model. Yeah. So software is completely sold on a subscription basis, which is the reason why it's so scalable, of course, because you stack your subscriptions on top of each other. And that's also why software companies are growing so fast and get those high valuations. But there's also the other side of it, is that you need to provide impact to your end user every single day, every single month, because otherwise you'll lose them. So all of a sudden we went from a one-time transaction to a subscription model, where we need to continuously get the customers on board as well and make sure that we provide enough value for them to renew. And I think that's when I look at tech partnerships where a lot of that origin, because all of a sudden what we saw with tech partnerships is that there are most of the times other software vendors that integrate with each other. So for example, HubSpot who integrates with Drift, for example, with live chat, and together you can provide more value to the end user. And the massive side effect of this is that you can actually get more retention there as well, because what we've seen in a lot of product data and for a lot of software companies is that the better they are integrated together, the higher the retention of an end user, and the longer they will stay a customer, so the higher the lifetime value. So you really get into that cycle of bringing more value, which means higher retention, which means higher customer lifetime value. And that's such an important part of SaaS, because that's like half of your growth engine.
Absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head, right? Where you want to build any product and any strategy, it's almost you want to deliver so much value that it's impossible to delete, right? It's so much work to replace a technology. And that's when you know you've got an unbelievable proposition. It's really easy to replace one piece of technology, but if you're integrators, why CRMs are one of the highest retention products there is, because it's sales, marketing, operations, it's cascaded all the way through your business. And I've never seen a CRM replacement happen organically, easily. It doesn't. It's really, really complicated. And because they drive so much value, they're inherently built into the business infrastructure. And so that to me is where partnerships are so critical, because if you don't have a product that integrates in that way, then you can build an alliance strategy to make that happen. What I'd love to hear is what's your view on, is the channel under threat from partnerships? Because the channel's typically been, as we discussed, a hardware facilitation strategy. And now that software has made hardware facilitation easier, we're seeing vendors now go direct to end user more often. So is the channel under threat from SaaS, or are partnerships going to help?
I think, to be honest, if you would ask me this question a couple of years ago, I would say it's under threat indeed. I still remember conversations I've been having with people when I started telling them that we were working for SaaS vendors as well. And then I said, why? Like, you put in your credit card and you can start running, right? And I think Indeed, but what I really see as a very big shift in the last couple of years is the new type of channel partnerships. So of course, what we've seen before is that the channel partnerships were completely transactional. So it was resellers, value-added resellers, managed service providers, retailers in B2C. So the partner bought the product and then sold it to the end user themselves. But I think what we've seen rising in SaaS at an incredible speed at the moment is what we call the influencer channel. So it's like affiliates, referrals, master agents, where the SaaS company indeed keeps has the direct relationship with the end user, but the partner plays a massive role there to make sure that the end user gets to know the vendor, that they actually get in touch with each other, and they will get like a lifetime referral fee oftentimes, where the SaaS company works directly with the end user, but the channel partner plays a very important role there. And I think that's what I see as a massive opportunity for channel as well, where we get into that direction as well. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think where I see a significant amount of opportunity, and we're already seeing it dominate in especially the UC space in the US. So for those of you that have not seen, lots of unified communication and collaboration vendors in the US have set up agency programs. And effectively what that means is partners are responsible for introduction, for creating a deal registration, for introducing the end user sales team within the vendor into that end user. So, you're targeting Coca-Cola. Well, maybe one of your partners who has been selling other types of technology has a really good introduction into their CTO. Fantastic. But they don't want to have to get upskilled on, security, networking, communications, all these different product sets, but they have the valuable network, they have the introduction, they have the good relationship. And those people are finding, well, hang on a second, I might be a specialist in one area. I might be a security specialist. That's great. But I can now monetize my relationship into these end users very effectively across a different stack. So you've referenced HubSpot. Well, if I have the introduction into that person, well, maybe HubSpot's not my specialization, but I might be able to work with HubSpot, who will pay me a very significant referral fee for that introduction. And so I'm now seeing these lean, mean sales organizations going, I don't want to be slowed down by the installation, the management, the product delivery. I don't want to do all of that. I'm a sales organization. So instead, I'll build a sales and marketing strategy to target high value end users. And I don't have to worry about the cost basis because I'm just getting referral fees. And typically those referral fees are for the lifetime of the contract. They can be extraordinarily high. I've heard stories of people being retired by closing one deal because they're going to get paid $20,000 a month for the next 10 years. They're like, see you later, I don't need to work anymore. And, they're off to the Bahamas. Congratulations. So I think we are going to see this pivot. I'm in full agreement. Channel isn't dying, but channel certainly is changing. So a great way that channel can target this new wave of smaller businesses is to build a particular team to go after them. And they can do that in a couple of different ways. So one is pairing master agents who specialize in the recruitment of these lean sales teams to go and enter these high value end users and really offload all of the operational and deployment work, but just take a referral fee. Effectively, it's an extension of marketing activity. And I think there's such an interesting mechanism to really go after those types of end users and that type of business, that to make it part of the traditional channel sales work won't work because they're comped differently, the sales process is different, the how you're going to sell to them, how you're going to target them is so different. You're actually better off building a specialist team just to target that sort of market segment, which I think brings us on nicely to how tech partnerships are doing it, because they're doing it in maybe in my language in a much more an alliance model. So Rick, I think it'd be really useful to hear your take on how tech partnerships can influence the channel.
Yeah, I think first we dove a little bit deeper into the retention part, of course. I think that's where it all started, where you really integrate with each other, bring more value to the end user, and from there on make sure that retention rises and customer lifetime value. But another very big trend why tech partnerships are so hot is to go to market together to each other's customers. Because if you have good integrations with each other, where you actually know that integration drives value for the end user, and a lot of end users are already using it, you can map accounts together and see each other's customer base and actually see, hey, we both know the CMO at Adobe. Maybe we can do a combined proposal to it or a joint value proposition. And then you have like the perfect entrance into such a company, but also a much higher value proposition because you do it together with each other and you can actually bring that value to that end user in the best way. And I think that's indeed one of the massive aspects of tech partnerships. And that's why you see companies like Reveal or Crossbeam growing so rapidly as well, where it's made easier as two separate ISVs, independent software vendors, to map accounts together, see where are the opportunities, and very quickly it's like the ultimate introduction. So there you see much higher closure rates, you see much higher average deal sizes, and that's all due to tech partnerships.
What's really interesting there is I sort of see that as a continuation of good channel process, just done slightly differently. Because one of the things that when you're a partner manager, let's say in the UK, we'd often target the 500 or the top 2,000 businesses within the UK. What we do is a white space analysis, right? So through that partner, what product are we selling? What technology stacks are we selling? And we try and fill everything in across that partner. And what's useful there is rather than relying on the partner or relying on individual sales capability to sort of structure that proposal, you're actually building the approach at a more senior level and taking that to market. So I think there's a way that you could fuse those two pieces together, which is to do both at the same time, right? Encourage your partners to do white space analysis, which I think is a fantastic thing for partners to be able to do, because they should be selling every product segment into every one of their key end users. That's obviously the ideal that we're all working towards. But then vendors can have an influence on how that segmentation is done, right? Here are our ecosystem partners. Here are our alliance partners. Let's take those to market and coordinate that far more effectively. What's interesting about that is if you can support it from a marketing perspective, you can make that process so much easier. So I think what channel and tech partnerships need to do a better job is coordinating sales and marketing activity. Because I think if you can take a joint marketing message directly to the end user, and then partners are following up and vendors are following up, mimicking that same message, it's so much easier for the end user to understand, okay, these should be bought in conjunction, these should penetrate into my business in the same way, which, as you said earlier, drives significant retention, minimizes churn.
Yes, I think one thing I want to discuss as well, based on what you said, is on the master agents and the referral partners. I think what's particularly interesting there is the way why vendors want to do that as well. And I think what you've really seen as a shift as well is that vendors want more and more insight into who is the end user. And of course, there was like this big barrier or this wall between them and the end users, which always used to be the resellers in that case. And I think that's what I see happening a lot as well. And that's why I think it's so important what you stated, that it really should be a different approach, because they have completely different needs, but also different worries. Because if there's one thing that the traditional channel is always worried about the partners, is that, hey, are you going to steal my customer eventually, right?
Absolutely. There's a huge amount of friction, and sometimes, depending on good behavior and bad behavior, sometimes a breakdown of trust, which is, are you stealing my customer? And for some instances, it's less of a concern. But for others, if you're an MSP and you're signing a co-termed invoice across 8 different technologies, then actually you want the partner in that instance to retain the invoice flow, retain the contract flow, because they are providing that unique value to the end user. In other instances, the example I gave earlier, which is, well, actually we're a cybersecurity partner, that's where we focus. Well, I'm keen to retain all of my data, my contracting, my invoice flow to me. I want to see the revenue and the margin flow through my business. But actually, unified communications isn't my specialization, but I hold a good level of interest with senior buyers within the end user. Well, fine, then I'll just do a few referrals in that flow. But that's only ever going to be a nice to have for that business. They're always going to get distracted with their core work. So my argument is you should split your channel into alliance, agent, and then proper partner, resell, wholesale flow, because then you can structure your sales and marketing efforts and recruitment efforts to hit each segment effectively.
Yeah, I fully agree there. I think it was I think it was also I think a webinar from Jay McBain I saw 2 years ago or something like that, where he literally split up the channel in those three types of channels. So you had the influencer channel, which is affiliates, master agents, and referrals. You got the transactional channel, which is resellers, value-added resellers, and managed service providers. And then you got the retention channel, so make sure that you keep providing the values, which is consultancies, agencies, independent software vendors, and system integrators. And I think then you really got, if you that's how you should structure your entire partner organization as well, because then you can really bring the most value to each type of channel.
Yeah, shout out Jay McBain for usually being 2 years ahead of the game, which clearly he still is. But yeah, absolutely. I think that the key point of that segmentation and what's often missed is there's no point segmenting it and then giving it to the same salespeople and go, oh, do you mind managing service providers and ISVs and transactional resellers? Well, yeah, I do mind, because that's a really stupid way to design your channel. What you want to do is segment channel and then build sales and marketing efforts to correctly support each infrastructure. I know previously we've talked about the difference between deal facilitation and deal creation. Now, those are two different sales approaches. They require two different levels of support and two different types of partner. For a facilitation partner, you want massive breadth. How many end users do you touch? That's really what I care about. Or deal creation. Well, I don't care if you don't touch a huge amount of end users. I care that you're very proactive with my technology and my sales process. And so depending on what you want to do, you want to provide different levels of support. And so often I just see channel is channel. Partnerships are partnerships. Let's chuck everything in together and hopefully some of it will work. Not strategic, very reactive. And we need to pivot far more to channel by design, not channel by accident.
Yes, I think if you look at that, in our last episode, we dove in really deep, like what does the partner journey needs to look like in channel. I think there we were very focused on the transactional channel, because when you look at the transactional channel with your resellers and your managed service providers, you need to make sure that they are good at marketing, so you create demand together. You need to make sure that they are good at sales, because they need to close the deals themselves as well. And you need to train them technically, because they have to implement it and completely deliver the value to the end user. And I think that's like the full spectrum where you continuously need to focus on. Well, if you focus more on the first, like on the influencer channel, where you have the referrals, the affiliates, and the master agents, that's where you will see a lot more focus on the marketing, because that's the only reason the only thing they want is to make the introduction to you. You take over the sales process as a vendor and close the deal, and they get back the referral. So what do you think over there? Like how can you attack that in the best way possible? Because I think actually those two both fit into channel partnerships, right?
Absolutely. And I think everything we've discussed fits into channel partnerships and tech partnerships. And I think that's the interesting thing that we're going to see over the next 5 to 10 years is the organizations, both at vendor, distributor, and partner, that get this segmentation and support delivery mechanism done effectively. Those are the ones that are going to win very, very big. And so what's really important to understand when you design your channel, you've got to understand, are we driving deal creation, deal facilitation, a combination of the two? And what are the supporting infrastructures that need to happen? For an affiliate marketing program, well, I need marketing collateral, I need ease of sale, I need deal recognition, I need all of those things built for me very simply, so that I can create opportunities very easily. It's so funny how often I see channel organizations go, so we've done loads of training and I'm going to send you a sales deck. Now, could you turn that sales deck into really high quality marketing? No, obviously not. That's such a complicated thing to do. And because you haven't had the time or the resources to effectively build marketing collateral to cascade through your channel partners, you can't rely on your channel partners to suddenly become marketing agencies for you without the right levels of support. So prioritize your objectives based on what you're trying to do over the next 2 quarters that's going to have the most impact on either deal creation or deal facilitation. Once you've built that strategy, you can optimize and re-optimize that singular strategy while potentially adding breadth by targeting, let's target facilitation and deal creation, but I stress with 2 separate teams, 2 separate flows.
Could you elaborate a little bit more what in your opinion is the difference between deal creation and deal facilitation?
Sure. So I think a great example would be for deal facilitation, you're looking at probably a large IT reseller. They sell a lot of different technology to lots and lots of end users. Their value is that they have great relationships with typically IT buyers, but they're not specialized in networking or security or communications or any of these different strands. Their value is the relationships that they hold, their operational delivery, and that they have a very good relationship with lots of vendors. Now, vendors typically value these partners very highly because they do a lot of business, right? So, but partners that do this extremely well, partners like Beckler in Germany, right across Europe, they're fantastic, one of the top partners in the world, and they do this deliberately facilitating a huge amount of business, and then they deliver value where they need to help drive volume. But a facilitation partner, a deal creation partner, typically a lot more specialized. So a good example would be an AV reseller. Maybe they only have 30 to 40 high value end users, but they might deal with Pepsi, Coke, and Amazon, and might do all of the meeting rooms globally for these end users. That's deal creation, because they're taking technology into those end users to educate them on what's coming up, and they're really providing a very specific but significant amount of value. Both have their place and both are incredibly important, but vendors need to decide how and why they want to win with each strand and build a strategy accordingly. Too often I see the same channel account manager managing a Beckler and an AV partner, and that's a very complicated thing to ask a salesperson to manage, because they include two very different types of sales cycle. You might have one partner has 1,000 salespeople and one partner has 12, and they require a much deeper level of education for the 12 than the 1,000, and that's a very complicated thing to manage. But often vendors just throw everything at the wall, and then based on what sticks, go, cool, that was the plan all along.
Yeah, so even within a transactional channel, you would already have to specialize, because indeed there's like the top partners who are more in the facilitating, that requires a whole different account manager than someone who's like facilitating the more specialized partners who are doing deal creation. But is that both purely in the transactional channel, or is one of them blending towards the influencer channel as well?
Well, I think it's the same process, maybe not the exact same implementation, that you'd get all the way through to affiliates, and even into an MSP or an ISV, right? So I've worked a lot in the service provider world, where you see companies like BT, they provide different solutions but very specialized solution, and tech partnerships want to integrate into their offering, right? And it's whether that's white label or branded, they want to integrate into that very specialized offering. That's a fantastic go-to-market, but that's a very, very different sales cycle. BT will have a different set of priorities and internal regulations and deal sign-off. That's a complex operational model to manage, very different to deal facilitation in a sort of transactional model. So yeah, wherever you can drive specialist organizations and business units within your channel and your tech partnerships is critical. Now, I know you've seen a lot of alliance, or in my language we would call alliance division, sometimes overlay structures. I'd love to hear how you think tech partnerships can coordinate better within channel organizations.
Yes, you're right about that. I think indeed in the hardware, I see that everyone calls it alliance partnerships, and in the software we call it tech partnerships. But to be honest, they are quite similar, definitely. Indeed, in hardware, we work a lot in AV, of course. There you see that if you want to create a huddle room, you can never do it on your own. You've got Logitech who builds video bars, you've got Barco who does the conferencing, you need Zoom to actually have a video call, you need Samsung to have a screen where you can see it, you need Bose to have a speaker. Yeah. So there's like already 5 brands just to have like one solution. So that's where it all started there. End users never want a specific product, they want a solution. And I think that's where the alliance partnerships really origin from the hardware perspective, because then that's where the value of the partner is so high, because they tie it all together and bring that complete solution to the end user. And I think in software, we even see that going to the next level, because most of the hardware vendors have like 20 or 30 alliance partnerships, at least where they put their efforts. Sometimes there are more. But in software, we see companies who have hundreds or thousands, like HubSpot, etc., Salesforce. It's incredible. Everybody wants to tie into their platform and into their ecosystem. So they create an integration, and as soon as the integration is created, then you only have an integration. And that's where we really see tech partnerships rising. If you just create the integration and you put it on the marketplace, I can kind of guarantee you almost nothing is going to happen. So that's why tech partnerships are rising yet, because it requires so much more. Because if you look at tech partnership, the first part is the integration. So it's the innovation. Together you integrate your products, and from there on you have a joint value proposition which provides more value to the end user than the software on its own. But then it's just the integration, and then the game actually starts. You need to start co-marketing together, like create combined customer cases that you can show to your customers and to new prospects, or you create webinars and stuff like that where you actually host events together. And then it starts with co-selling, what we spoke about before, the account mapping, where you really look into each other's customer base. So you actually leverage from both sides, like, hey, what customers do you have that I don't have, that we can provide more value combined together? And I think that's where you really see tech partnership, both on bringing that more value to the end users. So it really increases the customer lifetime value together with account mapping. So you get a lot more prospects, which are like a much higher value. They are much warmer introductions. And I think that's really where the strength of tech partnerships and alliance partnerships come together.
It's really funny because we're actually talking about the same thing, and I think it's so exciting where the channel and tech partnerships are headed, because we're coming at it from other ends of the spectrum, but we're all ultimately talking about the same process, which, whether it's partner recruitment or design integration, you can't just leave it there and hopefully it works out. Yet we see so many businesses do that. It's right, now we've done the first bit, recruit the partner or design the integration and get it turned on. Now what? And the difference between the partners that are very successful and the vendors that are very successful is how well they do that next stage. I've seen time and time again, it's really easy to create a Salesforce integration. Great, you jump through the hoops, or get your Microsoft certification, or recruit 50 partners in Belgium and go, right, we've landed, we're ready. Well, no, because now comes the difficult work, which is, what's our strategy? What are our goals? How are we going to break that over quarters? Where do our priorities lie now versus in 6 months' time? And really having an impact-orientated mentality. Because when you're doing it on your own, it's very easy to push it through very quickly because you can pivot yourself and you understand it. And that's why end-user-focused organizations typically go fast, because it's very quick to go, oh, I've had this bit of feedback, I'm going to pivot my strategy slightly and go. You just have that feedback loop. It's very tight. However, in a channel organization or a partnerships organization, it's much more complicated, but the upside is so much more significant. And I think that's why anyone who's really looking at how do we go nuclear, how do we really make this go, it's, I need to understand how to turn on key channels and key partnerships to really explode. Some of the biggest deals I've ever seen closed have been snuck in as part of a wider thing, and everyone's patting themselves on the back for the brilliant job they've done, and they've done almost no sales work. It was actually all operational and technical design, but because it was a valuable piece of a much wider puzzle, it just went in, and it's a massive deployment. The end user's got value and everyone's won. We need to be creating more of those win-win deals. And frankly, the better the channel recognizes that, and tech partnerships are already well on their way to just trying to find win-win deals. If we do that, end users win and we all win here.
Yes, I think the crucial question you put there is now what, indeed. Like, as soon as you got the partner on board, it doesn't matter whether it's a channel, a traditional channel partner, whether it's a referral, a partner or a master agent, or whether it's a tech partnership. You need to have a super strong partner journey for all of them. And I think that's why it's so important that it does require different types of people to focus on it and different types of teams. But it's also very important, how are we going to align it with each other? Because that's what I still see. I see a lot of software companies right now growing very fast. They have tech partnerships for quite some longer time already, and they're also starting with channel partnerships. But I think what we need to make sure that doesn't happen is that it are going to be two silos. So where the channel partnerships are focusing on their partners and growing that, and the tech partnerships are doing it for themselves. What do you think? What do we need to keep a hold of there?
As is very often the case with channel design and sort of structural design, it sometimes comes down to quota relief that we call in the business. Am I getting paid on this or not? And sometimes poor channel design can be very, very prohibitive to success. I've seen in previous organizations that people weren't paid on certain deal types. Guess what? They weren't working on them then. In fact, they were deliberately stopping parts of the organizations talking to their partners, because if the partner closed that type of deal, they wouldn't get paid on it. So they weren't just not helping. In fact, they were anti. And so bad channel and partnership design can really halt that growth. And sometimes businesses are so worried about double or triple paying on a deal that those deals never occur. And then they look to the partners or the individual sales reps as failures, when actually it's actually a strategic failing. They wanted to maximize their margin retention, whatever it is. And what we actually need is to understand that sometimes the same partner and the same end user is going to work on different deal types. And therefore you need different strands of teams that, having a team that's responsible for the managing of the partner, and then having different teams responsible for deal types is a really well-designed structure, as long as everyone is getting paid on everything, because that's when it can fall over. If you've got someone who manages BT but isn't going to get paid on ISV-generated deals, then they're going to say, well, sorry, ISV team, I'm not introducing you into the key stakeholders because I don't get paid on it. So what you need is really, really strong channel design so that the partner managers are incentivized to bring in tech partnerships, to bring in the alliance teams, to bring in wholesale. All of those organizations working together, suddenly you're going to create a huge impact.
Yeah, you're touching on an interesting topic there, on incentivizing in the right way. And especially what I hear a lot from the tech partnership side as well, what they are struggling with a little bit is, how do we incentivize the salespeople of my tech partner? Because oftentimes they don't get incentives on selling the co-solution. So like on selling actually the tech partnership as a whole. Like they only get incentivized on selling their own product. And I think that's where companies really need to have a look at. Like oftentimes within those tech partnerships, you give each other referral bonuses as well if you bring someone in, but you need to make sure it ties back to the individual sales rep there. Because that's the way you need to incentivize them to actually start talking about the tech partnership. Because I think that's crucial within the tech partnerships. You are relying on the other teams. Oftentimes tech partnerships are quite like small teams, because they are working so closely together, like they are tying together all the departments in a company. So they tie together marketing, product, customer success, and sales. And because of it, you are very much relying on them to share the story with the end user eventually, because I think that's the big difference between channel and tech partnerships. In tech partnerships, often the tech partnerships are not talking with the end users of their partners. While in channel partnerships, you really work together very closely with your channel partners to actually get to that end user, and you know on which ones you are targeting. While in tech partnerships, you're facilitating the sales team of the partner to go there. And I think that's where you really need to have a strong look, like how do you tie that together in the best way?
So let's break that down into 2 points. I think the first point is the difference there between tech partnerships and channel in terms of the level of end user control. Wherever possible, you want a seamless partnership through the channel or through the partnership, which is whoever is talking to the end user is correctly educated and incentivized to sell the ecosystem solution. Now, through partners, that typically works very, very well because they are paid typically on the full value stack, right? If you manage that end user and you sell any type of technology through that end user, typically, not all the time, but typically you're paid on everything. And so correct partner management and partner recruitment and design and enablement allows you to drive the full value stack into an end user. On the tech partnership side, and I stress this because channel leaders will kid themselves very often, if it doesn't retire quota, it doesn't incentivize, ever. So I've seen it happen where someone has been sacked and yet they drove 400% growth for a tech partnership. Now, luckily for them, they actually got hired by the tech partner, so it was okay. But I've seen it happen, and they missed their target by a long way, but they delivered so much value somewhere else. But if it doesn't retire quota, it's not going to drive the right behavior at a macro level. And so I've heard of organizations who have built quota retirement agreements where you've got, partner 1 and partner 2, they create an ecosystem approach, and any quota relief done on either side drives the right output. Now, that's very difficult to design and get signed off, but once done, huge impact. But there has to be a bit of balance there, because very often within tech partnerships, and this is where the complication arises, is one tech partner needs the other far more than the other way round. And then striking that balance is particularly complicated, because one of the partners owns the deal and the others are tying into those deals. And so what you've got to do is be able to build that two-way flow so that the value is being driven from both sides. Because if it's a one-sided partnership, it is doomed to fail.
Yes, I think that's for all partnerships, right? Both in channel and in tech partnerships. As soon as it gets one-sided, or the one is continuously bringing more value than the other, that really needs to keep in balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, what I would love to understand from your perspective is, how do you think tech partnerships can do a better job of bridging between themselves and potentially even folding in channel for a multi-ecosystem approach?
Yeah, I think what is most interesting there when I'm thinking about that is that you can create a double network effect. Like, because of course, when you start a tech partnership, you first tie together the both companies, so it's a one versus one relationship in that way. So you tie together one software company with the other. They create an integration. They start marketing together. They start doing co-selling. So they look at each other's customer base. But then what happens if both ISVs also have a channel? And that's where it gets particularly interesting, in my opinion, because then you've got both companies who are already having a very strong customer base, but also a very strong channel. Let's say with HubSpot, like they are extremely strong with their partner ecosystem, so with the tech partnerships, but also have a massive channel. Like, what kind of amazing partnership if you get two of those types of companies, where you first work on the tech partnership together, and then you see, okay, how can we get our joint value proposition through that channel? And then you get like the network times network times network times network effect. And that's, in my opinion, you can have an insane effect when you go to the channel partners you have combined. So you get even more end users to focus on. It's a massive opportunity to recruit new partners, because those partners are already helping end users with the other solutions. So it could be excellent if you have a strong integration for them. For a partner, it's an excellent opportunity as well. They can actually integrate you and upsell it to the customer, bring more retention, bring more lifetime value. So I really see a massive opportunity there if tech partnerships and channel partnerships really tie in together and leverage it.
We're going to need a buzzer for every single time I praise Microsoft, but Microsoft's a business that absolutely does that extremely well. If I break down Microsoft as a channel organization, it's got MSPs, ISVs, service providers, value-added resellers, facilitation partners, the whole gamut of channel design. But on top of that, it's got an obscene amount of technology integration and alliance partners. And so then the perfect coordination of that is what they are always striving for. And I think they do a very good job, given the complexity that they have to manage, more than 400,000 global partners. But that's what's critical, that network effect. I think you said it 4 times. That's what you're striving for, which is, hang on, we're going to build at a vendor level some tech design integration story. And then we're going to take that to market, but not directly to the end users, because we're missing our scaling effect. We're actually going to bring that to market via our partners. And that's where you're suddenly going to get the best of both worlds, best of channel, best of tech partnerships, because tech partnerships do a great job doing white space analysis within a high value end users. But then they've got to go and speak to all the end users. The obvious and logical next step is build the value within 1 or 2 end users, use case study, and then educate your channel to scale that at volume. Whoever does that well is going to win and really bridge channel and tech partnerships. And I think that's what we need to, and that's what we're striving towards as a business, to help people understand that bridging those two pieces together, that's what wins over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yes, and if you look at that, indeed, I think with the tech partnerships, they are very strong at going to enterprise and to high level mid-market. and with Alliance, but definitely indeed when you want to go to SMB, you need the channel. So that's like so important if you really want to scale there. And that's indeed with the Microsoft example is excellent. They've mastered that so well. They have such a broad and diverse set of partnerships throughout their entire company. So they are able to serve all types of end users.
But also speed to market. So I often hear, vendors are great at speaking to enterprise. They are, but it depends on how big their sales team is. You can only recruit so many enterprise organizations at one time, unless you're a channel. And then taking that to market, introductions into net new end users is best done via the channel, because guess what? They've been buying from the same people for the last 15 to 20 years. So, I know an end user based in Amsterdam. He's been buying from the same guy for 15 years. Guess what? He's going to be buying from him for the next 15 years too. And so if you want to target that large enterprise end user, you're better off targeting that partner, because FYI, they also deal with another 30 enterprise end users in Amsterdam. And so the quickest thing to do, build a technology partnership with a choice, well-positioned end users, probably ideally buying both of your technologies separately, work the use case into them, educate, and that's how you drive impact at scale.
Yeah, so driving it into the end user, right? The combined solution.
Yeah, so in my mind, the perfect scenario, and one that I've seen work very, very well, is that an end user organically is buying the two technologies separately, and then you've delivered a tighter level of integration and they've seen that value. And then you take that use case and educate a channel with that use case. And suddenly the end users are going to see that there's another layer of value. And the partners are excited, probably because they can sell integration services and drive extra value there. But they're also selling a more unique offering, right? A really classic example is, lots of partners sell Microsoft. So how do you provide value? Well, you don't just sell Microsoft. You sell Microsoft with an integration story, with a managed service contract. Those are the partners that are consistently winning.
Yes, and I think that's where channel plays a massive role as well. I think if you look at the tech partnerships, of course, most of the integrations are kind of out of the box. But if you really want to have it specifically for your organization, it always requires customization. I think Salesforce is an excellent example. Like, you can buy it for a very good price, but then you need to customize it to the next level, and then it gets really expensive as well. And usually you see that that's where the channel comes in, right? They are always the one who doing the customization, who help the end users as well. And for them, it's super important for the end user to have a partner like that who can actually service them with that. And a company like Salesforce or Microsoft could never scale to that level where they can help so many companies to implement, integrate, and customize in the right way.
No, and let's take that fantastic example, right? So Salesforce, they have an integration partner who's doing the actual management and the development within an end user. Who are they going to trust most for advice? That same partner. And so that's why I think so many tech partnerships are missing a trick. They build the integration story in the end user, and then they take the information straight to end users. Whereas if you've got service delivery partners that have been working day in, day out to, really sharpen the Salesforce message and make it unique and specialized for that end user, well, that's the trusted advisor. Hit that trusted advisor, and you won't just win one end user, you'll win all of their end users.
Yeah, and for the partners, the incentive almost comes naturally. Because if you look at it, like, usually the partners, like, their main source of income is the hours that they sell, like their services on top of it. So if there's an integration to be done, it will mean more hours, more implementation, more, maybe even a larger service contract, indeed, managed service contract. So there's like massive opportunity for the partner there as well, not just for the tech partnerships.
And to come full circle, a better integrated solution provides more value to the end user, drives up the total contract value, but most importantly, it minimizes churn. Unpicking Salesforce is difficult, but unpicking Salesforce that's been integrated into your telephony and your communication services, and you've built a security package around, and it's tied into a co-termed invoice delivered through a partner, oh my God, that's so much work to do. The cost-benefit analysis of ripping and replacing that it's just impossible. And so at that point, everyone is winning. And I think if we can sum up in one way, partnerships, channel, they need to be driving win-win solutions, not just for them, for all their partners and for their end users. And when you get all three of those things right, that's a message you can take at scale.
Yes, I think this is an excellent way to close off this episode. Thanks again for today, Alex, and see you next week.
Thanks, Rick.